Okay, so I'm gonna start recording. So the way we're gonna do it is that we have about 30 minutes each. So half of it's gonna be like questions that we have planned, and then others gonna be any open response questions that you guys have. So you guys can just throw them in the chat. So I guess I'll start it. So the first question I have is actually for Joyce. So the question is, do grades really matter? And how did you deal with the pressures of getting an internship in college? And what internships did you do if you had them?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I'll be honest here, like I didn't graduate with the most stellar GPA. So I mean, I definitely got a lot of my opportunities through me selling myself, knowing how to highlight, my capabilities. So like I definitely was rejected straight off the bat from certain places when I was, applying for internships and stuff like that. But I think when I did get to interviews, it was more so about what I was involved in, what I was doing while outside the classroom, but also stuff that I was interested in inside the classroom too. So I highlight a lot. I was very strategic about how I would highlight certain things and what I was going to bring to the table. So that's kind of how I got my internships. So I interned at about.com in my sophomore year summer, and then I interned at Adobe in my junior year summer. At my sophomore year one, I was doing more Java stuff. It was kind of like I helped with a lot of bugs that were happening on the team that I was on. Didn't really end up liking it. Honestly, I was not feeling like I was going to go back there after that. And then Adobe, my junior year, I worked officially, it was like a full stack internship, but I did a lot of web development. I worked in the Adobe stock team. So basically it's like their stock images library, basically. And that site, they were, a lot of users on that site, but it was modeled for desktop at first. But because like the increasing amount of people who were using it, they wanted it to be more mobile first, development in the web part. So I was working on that, kind of learning a lot about responsiveness and all of that stuff with web development. So it was really cool with that.
And then Sanita, I have the same question for you, Juana.
So as far as GPA goes, I think if you want to work at like consulting companies and like pharma companies, then it does matter. Like I've never gotten an interview from a consulting company, but my GPA sucked and I still got interviews from like big tech companies. So it's, again, like Joyce said, really important that you are active in the community, that you have like side projects, and that you have stuff to put on your resume so you can still attract companies to your resume and have them interview you. Like it's not just about the GPA. Like usually if your GPA is under a 3.5, like people say don't put it on there. So like so it doesn't really matter. Like they don't know it.
All right, Ritika, so I have a question for you. So how did you build upon the experience you got in an internship? And did you feel out of league during an internship ever?
Hey, great question. And also like shout out to you. I see that there's 49 or 50 people on this call on a Saturday night. So that shows like, that makes me feel really good about myself. But yes, okay. So in terms of the question, I would say I definitely have felt imposter syndrome, especially at my first internship. So I did a software engineering internship at Google, like through their freshman and sophomore program. And yeah, I've definitely felt that. And I think for me, like I've talked about this, I think in Wix events in the past, but for me, my imposter syndrome showed as like a different form, which is like, I felt like I was getting hired because I was a woman, because I was the diversity candidate. And I've heard like people in passing say that about other people. And I've heard like people say like, oh, because she's a diversity hire, meaning she got hired because of her diversity, which I think is like a different version of imposter syndrome, but still affects you the same way. And what was the other part? Oh, how did I build upon my experience? I think a huge thing is like when you reach out to people, I think like try to add value. So whatever you learned and whatever you're learning in school, like let's say I think there's someone on the call named Raina, who's awesome. And so she really wanted to work at Spotify. So she had worked on a feature like that she wanted to implement in Spotify. And like when she sent out that email, she had that to show. And when she did her interviews, she had that to show for it. And I think that makes a huge difference in getting interviews, is when you send out cold emails and things like that, add value from the beginning, even though like, and I think that increases your response rate by a lot. Like I can tell you, like, once I started adding value in my emails and started reaching out to companies I wanted to reach out to, it's worth spending like 2 hours or 3 hours on something, just reaching out, because that produces a lot of return value, I think, in my opinion. Yeah. And Joyce and Sanitha, feel free to chip in.
In terms of like cold emailing, like Ritika said, you definitely have to add like something for them to like reach out to you again. I cold emailed a lot of people, and like usually it's only like recruiters that like respond to me, right? Like if I like cold email someone who works at a company because I'm interested in them, they don't respond unless I'm like, hey, like this is something I worked on that, you know, you might be interested in. So definitely when you're sending out cold emails, don't just be like, hey, like let's set up a meeting. Like make sure you like have something that they'd be interested to read or like look at.
Yeah, a lot of time I would try to, I guess, make connections on LinkedIn that were not people I already knew, kind of thing. Like I would, I don't want to say stalk. Let's just be more professional about it. But like I would casually, look at their page, see what they're commenting on, see what they're sharing, maybe. And if they posted something, maybe, I don't know. It's kind of like I would do just to see how I could connect to them, like on a more of a personal level. I think that was a big tip that I learned. I remember one of the interviews I got before I joined RBC. One of the guys that interviewed me doesn't like chocolate, like I don't like chocolate. So that was one of the first things like he remembered about me, like past the interview. And then when I emailed him back after the interview, kind of like a thank you type of thing, I was like, I hope you're gonna be all right for Halloween this year, like blah, 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 blah. It was like a joke type of thing. And like those little things make people remember you. So I would say anytime that you have an opportunity to network with someone, or you're trying to cold email, like find something, like you said, either find, adds value to them that makes them want to respond back to you, or something that maybe will, spark their memory of you in their head. So, yeah.
So the next question I have is actually for Sanitha. So in what ways did Rutgers foster your growth in the STEM fields? And yeah.
Rutgers has a very vibrant tech community. Like it's so huge. No matter what you're interested in tech, you'll probably find something to do. Like even after I graduated, I know like there's like EthiTech and like other things that like that I've started this year. And I'm just like, oh, like I wish that was kind of around when I was still at Rutgers. So definitely like get involved in the community, because I've made a lot of friends. I've networked with a lot of people because I was in those communities. And it's also nice to like put on your resume, right? Because like if you have a position in these groups, or if you've like created something through these like clubs and organizations, that's something you can also add on to your resume. So I think definitely like, don't just go to class and like go back to your dorm. Definitely get involved in the community, because I think that like I said earlier, like my grades weren't that good, but like me being involved in the community definitely helped me a lot.
And then Joyce, kind of a similar question, but I guess like, why did you join Wix, and like, how did joining Wix help foster that growth in the STEM field?
Off of what Sanhita said, it definitely, broadened my horizons and also helped me later on. But for just strictly why did I join Wix originally, I wish I would have joined Wix like right when I started school. I didn't join Wix until I was a sophomore. So it was more so like finding other women around me, because at the time, I had known like one or two like people I could have like been talking to, but when I joined Wix, I found so many other girls that were like, oh, like not just like strictly wanted to do tech, like if that makes sense. Like I don't want to say that it's bad to do that, but I also wanted people who I could like end up being friends with like past the club, not just speaking about classes and doing stuff like that. So that's kind of why I joined originally. But then I got really involved in Wix. Obviously got on the board later on, helped with HackHERS. So it kind of got me much more involved in the community, and knowing everyone and able to come back like this and still be connected to the group too. I think it's just helped me immensely in the sense of like, I guess, learning all about like networking and community building and everything, but also just helped me just foster in the sense of like liking CS and liking being a woman in the field too. So yeah.
All right, well, I can ask questions about like right after college. So this question is for Rithika. What steps after graduation landed you at your current job?
Yeah, so I think I answered this one a little bit. But yeah, I would say networking a lot, and obviously like referrals help a lot. And yeah, I would say I'll put a link in the chat for a really good structure to sending cold emails. And I think for me, that's made the biggest difference. Also, I was telling Annie, I think my mentee this, but it's such a numbers game, and so much of this application process is like based on luck and like chance and randomness, and like if you apply above certain, like before certain people, or like timings and things like that. So like I recommend like just applying to like every, like don't feel like, oh, like I shouldn't apply because it's not worth it because I won't get it or something like that. Like apply to everything and anything that you're interested in. And like I think like every year I apply to like 100 internships, and like I literally still get rejection emails from sophomore year. Like I am like, oh, come on, come on. Like, so I would say like it's definitely like apply. Like, and I think Joyce, like Sanita, if you have any thoughts on this as well, like feel free to chime in. But yeah.
I definitely second the recommendation to get a referral, because there's so many places like I'll apply, 3 months goes by, nothing happens, and then I'll just like hit someone up and be like, hey, can you refer me? And then like a week later, I'll get like they'll ask me to interview. So definitely ask for referrals if you know someone who's worked at the company. Usually they also get like, if you get a job, they'll also get something on their end. So they'll be more than happy to help you out. Also, if you are like having a coffee chat with someone and like you think it went well, usually they'll also like, be like, hey, I can refer you, or like connect you to a recruiter. So definitely reach out to people at companies that you're interested in.
Yeah, and to go off that, I was with the sense of applying, I definitely I feel like a lot of, I guess I would say stereotypically, I feel like women don't apply a lot because like they usually look at a description, they think, oh, like I don't fit all of this or stuff like that. So don't feel hesitant to, don't be hesitant to apply to stuff just because you might not have certain things. When I joined RBC, they did not expect you to know everything. Let's just say that. Like they want you to know, obviously you graduated, you have enough, already from that. I learned a lot of what I did on the job, especially when I was in the time where I was coding and everything. So I learned a lot literally day by day. So, and I don't want you to think that it's like you have to know everything day one. And also, I mean, I got RBC like in the beginning with HackRU actually. They sponsored in senior year of my senior year, and they were like doing like very casual interviews at the hackathon. I mean, I know it's a little difficult now because everyone's virtual, but if there's opportunities to network like that with recruiters who are trying to speak with you or people who work at the company already, there's no harm in like getting opportunities or in like information about potential opportunities for you then also. So yeah.
Thank you guys. So the next question is, what is the most important thing to consider when considering a job offer? This is for Joyce and Sanitha.
For me, it was definitely work-life balance and benefits. Okay, so like obviously you guys are younger and you're probably not thinking about all this yet, and I didn't think about it, I'll be honest. Like I was just trying to get a job before graduating. I mean, I was lucky I got it before Christmas, so I was very lucky with that, but like I was not looking at that. My parents made me look at that stuff. They were making me ask for it, the benefits package, and like, because at least for me, I'm staying on my parents' insurance until 26. So potentially if I had to, for some chance, get kicked off or something like that, like I wanted to make sure I was still okay. So definitely looking at that, but also work-life balance in the sense that you feel that you're not being worked to death every day or you're feeling drained from work. and PTO is a beautiful thing as well. So definitely don't be afraid to ask those types of questions. And also, like, I know when I first got my offer, I also asked to talk to people who had went through my program. So if you're like looking for a new grad program or you're looking at a specific internship or something like that, you could definitely reach out to people who are either, have done that, or, you could talk to them about their experience and ask them questions too. So that's what I also did right when I got my offer.
Yeah, I definitely second asking about benefits. I actually have a friend who was told that she'd have unlimited PTO, and then she got there and she learned that there was like an unsaid rule that like people are starting off only get 10 days off, which obviously is not unlimited, right? So definitely like make sure that like you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And I think the biggest thing, of course, is money. Like a lot of us don't talk about like how much we're getting paid. Like most of my friends would not talk about that. And like definitely, like I know it's like an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's important for us to talk about those things so we know our market value, right? Like I had only 2 weeks to sign my offer, and then I found out that my friends at other banks were making a bit more than I was, and I was like, I could have negotiated there. So definitely, like it's uncomfortable to talk about those things sometimes, but if you like, I think we should, especially as women in tech,
All right, so the next question is, what things in your job did you find were really unexpected, and how were you able to adapt to that, Sanitha and Rithika?
S-Dog, you go first.
Yeah, so I'm sure Ritika can probably relate too, but my entire working experience, like full time, has been online. So that's interesting because I've never met anyone I've worked with. I'm close to my cohort, but only because we do virtual happy hours and because we have like a group chat. So it was interesting adapting to that because obviously we didn't get like a lot of the experiences that we would have gotten otherwise. But I think from my part, like I find that I constantly have to keep like speaking to people and to make sure that they remember me, that like I'm on their team, I've like joined their team. I have to keep asking my manager questions. I have to keep in touch with everyone. I'm also we have a graduate networking committee for our like, I guess, incoming group. So I've also joined that just so I can get to know more people, because especially now that we're at home, like I'm very much an introvert. Like I can go days without talking to people. So for me, it's important that like, I make more of an effort for people to know that I'm working in their company, I'm working in their team, in their division, etc. So it came down to me to like take initiative and like speak to people.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I would say, so I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here because we all are starting to get to know each other, you know what I mean? So for me, a huge thing was that I thought very strongly, like I thought that if I was experiencing any kind of like discrimination, or if I saw like any kind of potential negative thing in the workplace, or even like something small, like using vocabulary like honey or sweetie or things like that, I would be very vocal about it. And I thought this was something I knew about myself, and I thought like, yes, I would 100% stand up for people and be inclusive and all these things. And then I started work, and Microsoft's a great place to work. But there's definitely like, I think my team has a lot of men, and there's some small things like microaggressions and things like that that my manager or my manager will do. And it's actually been a lot harder for me to stand up and say something than I thought it would be. And I think like, so one thing that's awesome is like my cousin here is a huge inspiration of mine, because she also had something similar and she's able to navigate that, I think, a lot easier than me. And so I've gotten advice from her, and now I'm starting to reach out to like HR and like maybe be anonymous about this kind of stuff and try to figure out a way to give feedback about diversity and inclusion in a way to upper leadership and senior leadership in a way that I feel comfortable with. And it's a scary thing, because it definitely, like when you're in the job, it really feels like you could affect your promotions and your bonuses and things like that. And I thought I was just a little bit ignorant about that, I think, before I started work. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. So Sanhitha, this question is for you. If you could go back in time, what would you do differently?
I think I wouldn't have stretched myself so thin. Like we in general, especially in tech, we have a tendency to be like very, I guess, to overwork ourselves, to constantly be I guess doing work and internships and like school and side projects and lead code. And I feel like on top of all of that, like I would also always end up taking like a very heavy course load. So I think I would go back and just like, tell myself to relax, not put that much on my plate because it was unnecessary. I was stressed out. I would have probably ended up in the same place if I cut out a few things. You guys can add on if you have anything.
I think I would have, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with spread myself too thin because I was doing HackRU and HackHERS at the same time. Who knows why I decided to do that? It was fun. Like, I'm not gonna say it wasn't fun. It was just a lot at the time. But I definitely would have also probably did more side projects on the side because I definitely saw that as a benefit to some people, like, for people, especially for people who didn't have like internships and stuff, like they would talk about their side projects and it would be like really impressive. And I feel like I should have done that, but I never, like I always had an internship. So I was just like, all right, I'll just stay with that. And like, that's it. So I feel like I should have done that because I probably would have developed a little bit more on my own.
Thank you. So this is for Ritika, the next question. This is more like now, I guess, going after college. So how do you succeed in the working field? And do you have any tips for us here?
Sure, yeah. So I can talk about success a little bit. So I think still networking, like even if you're in the job and you have your team and you like your team, network still, like 100%, like network with senior leadership, network with partner teams, network with other people at the company. I think that's huge for like future success, like setting yourself up for, it's like positioning yourself in a place of luck. Like let's say in the future, like this person knows this person, or like it's bound to happen that like if you, the more you network within the company, then the more opportunities like people think of you for, or like things like that. Another thing is like, I think like to be successful, one thing I'm like spending a lot of time in is figuring out how to be an ally at work. And like, I think there's some things that you can do that are like non-confrontational. And I think in order to be a really successful coworker and peer, like this is something I wish I valued and I want to prioritize now at least. And for example, some things are like just saying like, hey, if you notice like during a meeting that someone is a little bit shy or is like hesitant to speak up, or you notice that in meetings they just don't talk that often, to be able to actually actively call on them after you're finished speaking. So being like, hey, like J-Dog or S-Dog, what do you think about that? Or like giving them the opportunity to speak, because otherwise they might not. And I think like that takes time. And so like there's different things like that. I think that requires being an ally, but I'm definitely still researching now. And if anyone has any advice, like I'd love to take it. But yeah, I think it's just good to prioritize that basically, especially working remotely. Yeah. J-Dog, S-Dog, any thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
I appreciate you calling on me, Ritika, but I have
Say,
nothing to add.
I love that. No, I would say, yeah. I mean, I've definitely adjusted to this working thing. Like I'm like 2.5 years at my job. So it's definitely an adjustment, like especially where you were in the office and you can kind of just go over to someone's desk and it was very informal to like speak to someone. Whereas now, like if you really want to talk to someone, you got to schedule like a one-on-one on the side, or like someone's got to ping you or something like that. So, I mean, definitely keeping those connections alive, especially I think is pretty important in this space that we're in right now with COVID, is a big thing. And like she said, like networking with senior leaders, it's been, for me, like I'm in a specific project right now that I'm helping with, that's my manager has given me the opportunity to like speak with a lot of different people. So it's been helpful for me to like keep trying to start those connections, because normally I would not be like, oh yeah, like let me go talk to this L4 manager. Like I'm not gonna do that. And I'll be very scared to do that. So it's been easier for me to do that, and like for people to assist you, like I feel like eventually I want to be someone who can assist someone else and bring them up as well. So like I want to, I guess, pay it forward. That's the word I'm looking for. But I definitely think like that's a big, networking I feel like will always be a big important thing to do.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question I have is for S-Dog. So I guess for you, it's what would you look for if you were in the position to hire new graduates from Rutgers, and like what qualities, I guess, would you look for?
Of course, if they have relevant classes and internships, that'd be great. But I think like a growth mindset and like looking to keep themselves busy and be productive even if they don't have internships on their resume is an important thing. Like a lot of people, even if they don't have internships and stuff, they'll do research or they'll be doing side projects and they'll show that they're interested in development and or whatever it is that they're pursuing. So that's what I'd want to see. I'd want to see that they're keeping themselves busy and being productive, even if it's not like with internships. Do you guys have anything to add?
I think Joyce, I think the next question for you is kind of similar, I guess, but I guess what are some of your long-term future career aspirations that you think Rutgers kind of helped you like pave the way for?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like I really didn't think I was gonna end up in PM this early. I felt like I was gonna go into software engineering. That's kind of why I decided to push off software meth until like my senior year, because I kind of wanted to take that class and know how, like, I guess the mindset technically, I mean, obviously it's not gonna be the same thing, but in a sense have that mindset of like having deliverables due at different times that were all part of like the same project. So I took that near the end because I figured I was going to do that in the real world. But just in general, I think that got me to the point of now like thinking, okay, maybe I'll continue PM or maybe eventually do something with like UX or UI, something like that. That's I've always kind of had in the back of my head. I think it's always had those, just having those, I guess, different classes that have made me decide for myself, like, I don't really want to do that, or I really don't want to do that, like kind of thing has helped me figure out like what I want to do for myself. So yeah, I'll be biased. I did not, systems was not for me. And I knew that automatically. So that was one of the first classes that I was like, okay, like it was, you know, it was good for me to learn, but, and it was good for, I think it was good for me to know that going in, you know, like I didn't want to put myself into like a job where you're like stuck in that, you know, before you even like try it, I guess, in a sense. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so the next question I have is for Samantha again. So so when you are like on a typical workday and you're getting really overwhelmed with your job, what ideas or do you have to like regain composure, and what advice would you give to current Rutgers students to, I guess, take a break from everything and just relax?
Honestly, one of the biggest things that I do is like I don't have Outlook or Skype on my phone. I think that's really important because I don't want to keep checking my emails when I'm supposed to be relaxing, you know? Like, so don't do that. Like, definitely have that line between your work and your life. Another thing is like when you're receiving work, right, make sure you can say no to things. Like if you know that you have 40 hours a week that you're spending on a certain project and your manager or someone else is like, hey, can you do this for me? Feel free to be like, no, because I can't get everything done on time. Right? Like I've had to do that before. It feels weird because I'm just like, oh, like, no, what if they think I'm underperforming? But like at the end of the day, like if you also want to be like productive and like produce quality work. So you shouldn't be overworking yourself, right? And most of the time you're not going to be paid overtime for it either. So like, what's the point? So yeah, definitely work-life balance is super important and be able to say no. That's my advice. If you guys have anything to add on, please join in.
That Outlook sound triggers me in my sleep. I mean, I'm just gonna say that, like, that's a great tip too. I mean, I'm lucky. They give me I have it right here. I'm an iPhone user, okay, tried and true. But they gave me a Samsung for work. I'm so glad I have a separate one because if I had to keep this on my actual phone, I think I'd want to throw my phone across the room. I'm triggered. Like that sound triggers me. But go ahead.
I think some people also have bloopers if they have everything on the same phone. Like one time I accidentally sent one of my coworkers my grocery list and he was like, oh, that seems fun. What are you making for dinner? And I was like, what? So yeah, definitely keep those things separate.
So Ritik, I have a question for you. So I know we have a bunch of people here who are like, not everyone wants to go into development. We have UX design, product management, and everything. So I guess what made you realize, like, what made you fall in love with technology? And once you were in the field, like, how did you know that this is not what I want to do? Like, how did you find where you are in technology?
Yeah, sure. So I started CS in high school. And I was really lucky to have a teacher who was very supportive of like independent projects, like our final projects and midterms and things like that. She was very vocal about like, you could do whatever you want as long as you hit these things on the rubric. Like, but then other than that, you can figure out what characters you like, how you want it to look, like all like everything surrounding it. And so I really liked CS, and I really liked that CS is one of those things where I think can help you in any industry and any like, it just has the impact that it has if you know the language is very high. And so the thing I liked, but then when I did my first internship in CS, I realized like the thing I was doing, which was like, software engineering wasn't, I think, the fit for me, which is like, I really enjoy like meeting with people, like meeting with different types of people. And also like the thing I like about CS is actually like figuring out what to build, what features to build, how to make it look. Like I like the creative and like that aspect of CS in a school. But then when you go to industry, I found that, especially if you're new into engineering industry, like you don't really have that decision with what you're building, what features to prioritize, talking to customers. Like usually that role is the PM. And I saw that on my team, like I think that's more of what I want to do is what the PM was doing. So after that internship, like I took a step back and I interned at like a startup as a PM intern to see if that's what I would like. I really enjoyed it. So then I tried working I was like, okay, let me try working at a bigger tech company. And so that's when my junior year, I interned at Microsoft as a PM, and then I joined full time. And yeah, I love it. I love product management. I highly recommend, like, so I would say like Rutgers, like, has a really up and coming environment for non-CS, like software engineering roles in the tech community. For example, like shout out Blueprint, and yeah, things like that. But does that answer the question? I don't even. I think. One other thing I was going to add is JDog. I heard that you were thinking about product, like you're a PM now, and you're thinking about product design. I'd love to hear like your thought process, like as you've been switching through these different things, and what makes you want to think about certain things versus the other, and like how that transition actually happens in industry. Because I knew very early, like my internship, but JDog, if you switched after, then yeah, it'd be super cool to hear that.
I love you calling me J-Dog. Every time you say it, it's so funny to me. So yeah, no, I mean, I definitely was afforded an opportunity with this rotational program, because I feel like you wouldn't have the opportunity for me to like explore different things and not, like still have it like be like employed, so I was able to switched through 4 different teams my first 2 years at RBC. The first 2 I was doing development, and then the second 2 I decided to do like PM work. And what actually really drew me to PM in the beginning, honestly, was the people. Like I was talking to lots of different teams, learning a lot about the business, because honestly, when I was developing, I technically knew what we were developing for, but I really didn't need a finance background. Like, yes, you would like find bits and pieces here and there, like I would need to know, but necessarily when I was coding, like it was like stuff that was happening on the back end. Honestly, it wasn't really a lot of stuff that was being seen to the traders or anything like that. So for PM, it was a lot of like, oh, okay, like I need to know about these contracts, or I need to know about like stuff like this. So it was cool to learn all of that, but also speaking to a lot of different people. I mean, even though I'm not always the best fan of meetings, like it's cool to be around different things and being creative in the sense of like how to plan out a project, basically the roadmap of that. In the sense of me deciding that, I think it came down to like when we had the choice of staying in that current rotation or moving back to like development. I think it was just that the previous 2 teams, I couldn't see myself developing like full time there. Like I just felt like the PM work was more for me at this time period. And me wanting to do UX, I went kind of have been having flashbacks to my Adobe internship, where I was doing a lot of like the desktop first to mobile first type of stuff, and I was helping a lot of the UI designers were in meetings with me while I was an intern. And I just loved their input of a lot of stuff. Like we did a lot of like storyboarding, we did a lot of just customer conversations with the clients and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see how that process went, and I felt like I want to go back into that in the sense of like just designing something and being creative in that sense. So I think that's kind of like what I'm thinking about now. How am I going to transition? Who knows? It's a working in progress kind of thing, but we'll see how it goes. But I do enjoy, like, I think the people's always the easiest part for me.
Thank you. So the next question I have is for Sanita. So we have a bunch of seniors here. Some are Raksha and Reina. Radhika mentioned, and Raksha is our experience director. So they're graduating in 2021 along with many other seniors. So do you have any advice for them once they're going to enter the field, and how did you expect the field to actually be versus what you found it to be? So do you have any advice for them?
I think one thing to keep in mind is, I think Joyce or Ritika mentioned this earlier, but like usually like companies don't expect you to know like everything, right? They don't expect you to be seasoned developers like when you're just a first year. So keep that in mind, like don't be anxious and definitely ask questions. Like most of the time people are more than willing to help you out. Like don't try to figure it out by yourself, because it's like, it probably won't work. Like it's much easier to have someone like explain like whatever your problem is. So that's definitely something I would say to keep in mind. What else? Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Do you guys have anything?
I do. Negotiate, okay? Listen to me. You will get more money if you negotiate. I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, I just graduated. Like, what do I know? Like, oh, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose this job. Like, it's the first job I have. Negotiate. Like, they're not, it's very unlikely. Like, if you're respectful about it with your recruiter and reasonable, and you say like, hey, here's what can you like ask for a little bit more and say, here's why I think so, or I have these competing offers. Can I have some more money? And like explain, if you give as long some reasoning, it's not crazy, like you're not asking for like a Lamborghini or something, they will not like just rescind your offer. Like it's very unlikely. And there's like statistics about this that one, like men negotiate a lot more than women, which actually contributes a lot to that pay gap. But also, yeah, like I think it's just that whole part of that process where like women think they don't, like they're like risk averse, or like they don't think that they feel imposter syndrome, or just a whole bunch of things that like society has like kind of ingrained within people, I guess. And also it's not just about your initial offer, but negotiate promotions, negotiate bonuses, like have that, be very transparent with your manager and vocalize those conversations, even if it's difficult, and say things like, hey, and there's like ways to say it. For example, hey, like I'm about 3 months into my job. Am I on track? Like with what I'm doing, am I on track to have a successful promotion in a year? Am I on track? Like there's like ways to say it where you're not super aggressive, but you're still measuring against something, and you're like being very vocal about what you want and that you want a promotion. You're telling him you want a promotion in a year. Am I tracking against it? And like hold other people accountable as well when you have those conversations.
Thank you. So the last final question I have before I open it to the floor for questions. So if you guys can go back to college, what is one advice you would give your younger self that would help you where you are now? And this is for anyone.
How young do you mean?
Up to you, wherever you want, whatever year you want to go to.
I mean, one of my first things I've always like, because being in COVID, I've been in the house. I feel like I've been in the house for years at this point. Like I'm just like, I miss being so close to all my friends, honestly. Like in the sense, I feel like you're never gonna have a time like college again, honestly. Especially if you're dorming. I'm not saying if you're commuting, I mean, this probably won't apply to you as much, but if you're dorming, like I will never have the opportunity to just be like, oh, I'm gonna get on a bus and see my friend like less than 15 minutes. Like it's never gonna be that same again. And I learned that so quickly when I became working, like when I was working, because because I had a lot of friends who were in the year below me, so they were still at Rutgers, and I was graduated and started working everything, like, and I had to like plan when I was gonna see them. Like, it was like I had to plan in advance. I was like waiting for the weekend. Like, it was a lot. It was just a lot that I had to adjust to when I became like an adult, you know. But I would definitely don't take a lot of your stuff for granted. Enjoy everything that you can while you're still there. And I wouldn't say like don't have any regrets, like don't like feel like you have to hold back from stuff. Try as much as you can, all of that, like take as much as you can. Oh, and like all your discounts, keep those discounts, guys. All right, let me just say that too. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I agree. I commuted and I still miss college because like you won't see that many like-minded people who are your age in one place like again, and I miss that environment. So definitely make the most of it. Make lots of friends. Like I miss it.
I remember being at work. I have like my first rotation, I had someone who was next to me who was probably like 40, became my best friend. I had like my second rotation. I was luckily like in a room with like other rotational analysts. So I was like around people my age. But then when I became like in my third and fourth, like I was around people not my age. Like very like now the team that I'm on, there's only one other girl my age. So it just gets to a point where you're craving low-key craving that energy. So that's why I'm like more so hyping on that. But I do think like there's can be work-life balance where you still have that opportunities outside.
All right, guys. So thank you so much. We're gonna now open the floor. So anyone who has any questions, feel free to type it out in the chat. I'm just gonna read them out loud as they come in.
Did anyone answer the question that's already in the chat about the field of computer science?
Well, if anyone wants to take that.
Okay, I'll go first. So I still don't really know what field of computer science I want to work in, but for me, it's been like a process of elimination. So like there's certain classes I took, like Joyce mentioned systems. I was like, oh no, this is not what I want to do. I had a testing internship and I was like, no, this is not what I want to do. So for me, so far, it's been a process of elimination. Hopefully I'll end up figuring out what I want to do, but I think it comes with experience. Like if you're interested in something, try making a side project, see if you enjoy it, and then you'll know whether you want to pursue it further.
I agree with that. I mean, I think it's fine to be trial and error. I don't think you need to know exactly everything right away. Especially in college too. Like, I mean, I feel like near the end, you definitely need to know because you want to graduate, but like in the beginning, obviously you don't need to know right away either. But for me, I was applying to a lot of different places. I remember like my first month of senior year, had interviews like back to back to back all over the place. Like I was trying to get that job and everything. But I mean, I landed in, the fintech, I landed in the bank industry. I did learn very quickly, at least at RBC, I can't speak for other banks, but at least at RBC that even if the people have moved around, like they've only stayed in finance. At least I'll give you an example, like my manager, my second rotation, like her and another guy like came from what's called JP Morgan together. Came from JP Morgan to RBC together. So like it's like a lot of like jumping around like that where they just stay within the bank sphere. And personally, like, I don't think I want to stay there, but like I have enjoyed like being here, but I still, like you said, I like Sanhit said, I still don't really know right away. I don't know if I want to go into like the big four either. I feel like that's, a lot of pressure that goes into that as well. But yeah, trial and error, and it's okay, totally okay.
Also, one thing I would add really quick is when you feel like, if you feel like software engineering is not right for you, but if you had like a good internship and you're like, hey, like, should I just take the return or things like that? And I'm super risk averse, and like it was very hard for me to like leave a bigger tech company or more well-known company to do a PM internship at a startup or like something people never heard of. That was really hard for me, and I like definitely people were like, what the heck, like what are you doing, like what like what but I would say it's definitely worth it. And like trust yourself, like if you got the internship the first time, you can go back, like try the other thing, do it at a startup. Or in fact, like one thing that could, it's like, if you want to be risk averse and you want to save your summers for the internships that you want, then do something in the fall, like part-time, like do like a data science internship if you want to explore that, or a product design internship, and work part-time and work for like a startup. Or I would just say like it's totally worth like finding the job within CS that you want, or finding within the industry that you want, because it just brings you a lot more fulfillment and happiness at the end of the day, versus like if you're only doing it for stability or things like that. Like, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
All right, thanks guys. So I have another question in the chat, and it's asking, what is one accomplishment you're particularly proud of?
Silence. There's like silence.
I'm thinking.
Our dog, you go first. You go first. Go.
I would say like honestly, like mentoring and doing stuff like this, I think is really impactful and really fulfilling. And to see people like that you're supporting, and like to really root for people and then see them succeed and like help them in that journey, I think is really fulfilling. Yeah.
Graduating was my accomplishment, guys. There were so many times I was gonna drop CS as a major. I applied to the business school at one point, but graduating with a CS major, that was my accomplishment.
I love that. I had to plug in my computer, that's why I was bending down. But for me, I second our dog's thing about mentoring. I have at this point so many mentors that I keep up with. It's lovely. I really do love it. But also I would say being able to live on my own for 3 months in San Francisco for my Adobe internship. I was so scared because I had never really been away that long before, honestly, like across the country with no one that I knew. And also to cook like that every day, like I was not about it, I'll be honest with you. Like I had to learn enough to, for cooking and everything, but it was great to like have that experience and see how Silicon Valley was, like being around all those tech people in like one place was very interesting to see, because I felt like every person, even like who weren't like software engineers, they were working in tech. Like it was like maybe a salesperson in tech, or it was like marketing, PR, like it was always someone who was just like working in a tech industry. So it was very interesting to like be in that bubble out there.
All right, we have another question in here from Cameron, and she asked, how do you recommend preparing for a first-time internship?
Usually before I start like any internship or like rotation, I reach out to the manager and I ask them if there's any way that I can prepare. They'll usually like point me to some like resources to read about their technology or like the stack that they work on. That's a pretty good way to like have a good idea of what you're like going into before your first day. So yeah, definitely reach out to whoever your manager is and speak to them.
And ask them to connect you with like a mentor, like someone else on the team too, I think, or previous interns. That's something that I did, I think. Actually, I didn't ask for that. But my manager told me like, hey, this person interned for me last summer, talk to them. And like, it was super helpful to figure out like what they did and to have that mimicked.
Okay, Surabhi said that, I love all your personalities. This was so inspiring and fun to be here. I guess I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the competition in the CS job market? And do you have any strategies to overcome it?
I don't think it's as inundated as people say it is. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh no, there's too many CS majors, but like, it's not really a thing. Like, there's so many jobs in tech. And I think you'll find something that you like. In terms of strategies, like just, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything?
I mean, I want to say I agree in the sense of like, I don't feel like it's so overwhelming as people like perceive it to be. I will say I feel like the interview process is definitely like daunting and very overwhelming in certain sense. Like I feel like I haven't interviewed in a minute, so I can't say the current sphere right now, but when I was interviewing, I felt so hounded. I had like how many coding interviews back to, like, I don't even know why I do this to myself, but I remember like being at my dorm and like having like 2 back to back, and it was just like so like exhausting, honestly, because you would be on the code with the phone with the developer while you were coding, like in a shared like environment, and I was just, yeah, it was a lot. But I would say I would practice that, honestly, because when you practice that, I guess, action of being on the phone talking with someone while you're coding on the screen, they want you to like kind of show your thought process. So I would definitely try to go through that at least with someone, maybe someone practiced with you, like being on the phone or whatever, and maybe you're in a Google Doc or something. I don't know what you guys could do. I don't remember how it worked, but you know, you could practice that with someone and learn how to, like, I guess, speak out how you're coding, if that makes sense. Like, I think sometimes it's a little difficult for people because you're just so used to just like looking at a problem and just coding it right away, or like trying to figure it out. But a lot of these companies, they want to hear how you're going through the problem, like how you're problem solving. So I would definitely try to practice that.
Adding on to that, definitely practice behavioral interview questions. There were certain behavioral interviews I walked into thinking it would be a piece of cake, and I was like, oh my God, I should have prepared better. Make sure you have a good elevator pitch. Make sure you know the company's mission statement and their values. Make sure you can speak about those things and connect yourself to it so they can see you as someone who'd fit into the company. So that's definitely something I feel like I was just like, you know, I didn't really care about much in terms of preparing. And later on, I realized I really should have been more serious about that. So definitely practice behavioral interviewing along with coding.
So I think that's all the questions we have for today for our next workshop at 7. But we just want to thank everyone for coming out, and thank you again for all of you three. You guys are all of our mentors and really special place in the Wix community. So thank you again for coming. But, yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love the background, guys, the little HackHERS background. I love that.
I'm wearing my HackHERS shirt for you guys.
Very cute. I couldn't find mine. I was gonna wear it, couldn't find it. And I have plenty. I don't even know why.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you guys at the 8 o'clock event. But
Bye.